Hello and welcome to Equine Science Talk International. We've had a question from Doug, who's preparing a young horse for driving, and he's finding that it's very sensitive about things around its sides and touching its legs. So he's asking why this might be the case and what sort of exercises he might be able to do to help the horse get over this. Well, this is in fact a very, very common problem. It's not just with driving. We also see this sometimes with horses when they're first learning to double lunge, for example, or long lining. When anything touches the sides and the legs, that can be a bit triggering for the horse. So let's have a look at why this might be the case. Well, first of all, for the horse as a prey animal, its legs are its means of escape. So anything that threatens its legs is also potentially life-threatening. We always need to bear that in mind. Then there are two factors that are separate, but they overlap. And one is the horse's fields of vision, and the other is its laterality. That is to say, the way the two sides of its brain interpret information differently. So let's dive in and have a look at these in a bit more detail. First of all, let's have a look at the horse's visual fields. Well, the first one is the binocular field. This is relatively narrow compared to the human binocular field. It's roughly 65 degrees, and this is the area where the horse can look at something with both eyes at the same time. It's also the area where it has the sharpest acuity of vision. So it's the place it's going to choose to put anything that it thinks is potentially threatening. So that could be something new. It could be something if it's looking for where a sudden noise is coming from. It will look first with two eyes. Then secondly, as we move around, we've got two very large fields of monocular vision. That's where the horse can only see with one eye, and it has a much, much wider panorama of vision than we do as people. That monocular vision goes almost all the way to the back. Then, just as we get towards the haunches, we have two areas of marginal vision. That means it's the area, rather like if you put your hands up next to your eyes and you move them back, there's a place where you can just about see the movement, but you can't really see what's moving. And that's similar to the marginal areas in the horse. It can see things moving, but it can't clearly see what they are. Then finally, we have the blind area directly behind the tail. And if you learnt to ride when you were young, as I did, you will have been told very, very strictly, do not run behind the horse. And this is precisely because of this blind spot. Things moving quickly in and out of that area can be very startling for the horse, and that can make it kick. So that was very, very good advice. What we probably weren't told at that stage, certainly I wasn't, and I don't think many people were at that point, is that this blind area isn't just behind the horse. It actually goes all the way along the back. It goes up the neck, it goes under the neck, it goes under the tummy. So it's like a corridor along the horse and a little bit out in front of the nose as well. And the horse can't see when it's looking forwards, it can't see in any of those above, below, close by the sides. So what we need to bear in mind as riders is that when we're sitting on the horse, we're actually sitting in the blind spot. The horse can't see the rider. It can probably see your feet and it can maybe see your lower legs, but that's it. So when you think about it like that, it's maybe not surprising that horses sometimes spook when we first get on them. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. Something disappears into that blind spot and then they feel, whoop, the other leg comes down on the other side. Now, leading on from that, and in addition to that, we have the horse's laterality. And as I mentioned, this is the different processing on each side of the brain. And it used to be thought that information didn't transfer from one side of the horse's brain to the other. But then it was found in 1999 that actually it does transfer perfectly well. It's just that the interpretation is different on each side of the brain. So let's have a look at what those differences are and how they might affect the horse's behaviour. Well, the right side of the horse, that's the left hemisphere, is responsible for considered behaviour, analytical behaviour, focused attention, and learning. So if you like, it's the considered thinking side. The left side of the horse, the right hemisphere, is instinctive behavior, rapid reaction. The left side reacts faster than the right side. Emotional behavior and stress responses. So in very general terms, the left side is quick reaction and instinct. So we can see how the two hemispheres divide up the work and how these two need to interact. If the horse doesn't accept something on the instinctive level, it's going to have trouble with it on the thinking level. The instinctive level will win because that's what keeps the horse alive. And we can see this in all sorts of situations where horses are confronted with new or potentially scary objects. They will usually approach first from a distance with both eyes. Then as they get closer, they will switch to looking at it in the left eye. So they want to use that instinctive right hemisphere processing. And we also see that if the stress level increases for whatever reason, the horse will also have an increased preference for the left side, for that instinctive side. This could be it wanting the potential threat itself on the left. It might be another horse. It might be a person. It'll want the thing that it feels it needs to react quickly to on the left. This is perfectly normal. This is the instinctive side of the brain coming into play. Now, many of us are familiar with Fergus, the cartoon. And Fergus has what I think is an absolutely wonderful summary of the way the horse sees the world in just a few words. He reworks Descartes' "I think, therefore I am," and he says, "I spook first, and then I think about it later, therefore I am." And that summarizes it perfectly. The horse's instinct is the first reaction. And it has to be, because that's how it survives. If it hangs around to analyze, oh, what was that thing over there? Might that be a lion in the bushes? It's already dead. It's got to run first. So we need to bear this in mind. So putting these two things together, the laterality and the blind spots, we can begin to see why these blind spots are so important and why things moving through these blind spots can be very stressful for the horse. So let's move on and have a look at some of the exercises that can help with that. Before we start, there are a couple of points that we need to bear in mind. First of all, with the kind of exercises I'm going to be showing you in a minute, these need to be repeated. And they need to be done in different situations and with different equipment and under different circumstances. Horses do generalize, but only up to a certain point. So just because something works on one day in one position in one setting, it doesn't mean it's going to be okay the next day. So it's important to repeat all of these exercises under different situations in different places, as many things as you can imagine. And the more you do, the more you will find the horse adjusts much more quickly each time. The second really important point is to take things slowly. If the horse seems to be a little bit distressed or it's not understanding, don't force it. Because if you force it, the stress level goes up and the whole thing becomes much more difficult. The laterality kicks in, the horse starts wanting you on one side, nothing is going to work. So take it gently, take it slowly, and be consistent. These are just so important. It's very tempting, particularly with your own horse, because there's an emotional connection. You think, oh, come on, you know what I want. The horse doesn't. The horse is always a horse and always behaves like a horse. So forgive your horse for being a horse, so to speak. That was one phrase I was taught a long time ago, and it's really stuck. It's so important. And finally, always, always safety first. If the horse shows an extreme reaction, is becoming distressed, upset, you're not sure how to deal with it, stop, forget about it, get some help, get a professional to come and help you with it. Most horses are usually fine with this sort of exercise. They might be just a little bit unsettled, but they get the hang of it fairly quickly, as long as you take it slowly and you're prepared to back up a few steps when something goes wrong and set it up again. Sometimes you get horses that become very stressed or they panic. In that case, don't put yourself or the horse at any risk. Get out of there and get someone to come and help. Today I'm working with Belladora. She's an Arab Lusitano mix. She's 14 years old, and she's done a lot of this type of work before, not necessarily these exact exercises, but similar sorts of things. So I'm not expecting any strong reactions. The idea here is to show you how things go when they're going correctly and how to approach this kind of issue with the horse. She's not necessarily going to be the same as your horse. Every horse is a little bit different. Now, the first thing I'm doing is swinging the rope under her chin. So she sees it on the left, and then on the right, it's moving through the blind spot. Then it can go over her face. The same thing, a little bit like another horse swishing flies for her in the summer. But again, it's moving through the two visual fields. Just let her settle down a little bit there and then go over the neck again through the blind spot. Let her feel something on the other side. She's being very good with this. She's not really reacting much at all. If you watch her ears, you can see where the attention's going. And every time the horse accepts something, just give it a little break, a little stroke, a little break, and move along the back. We often find that the right hind is sensitive. So as the rope goes over and hits the right hind leg, sometimes there's a reaction there. If you get that, then you can just move back to the center of the horse and then set it all up again. So we're turning around. I'm turning her around me because it's actually just good practice generally. It helps with the camera, but it's also good practice to have the horse moving around my space rather than me moving around the horse's space. And we repeat the same procedure on this side, under the chin. Now it's right eye, left eye, and over the face, just as we did on the other side, and over her neck. And again, just give her a little pet. She's doing very well there. She's accepting everything. Over the back, so that's where the saddle is going to go, and also where the rider's leg will go. Over the hip, of course, that can also be if the rider's a bit clumsy and getting on, you might knock the horse on the hip. So it's good that they're used to that idea as well. Or indeed, if you're preparing them for driving, that there is something on both sides. And if they're doing well, just give them a break. Just give them a little scratch. Always show them that you appreciate the fact that they're trying and they're doing the right thing. Now let's turn around again. So coming back to the left, with most horses, it's best to start on the left. Most horses will be more settled when they can use that instinctive side first. And now I pick up both sides and run it along her tummy. That's another blind spot that she might well be twitchy about. Quite a few mares are. Belladora isn't. Just try it and see. And now I'd like her to take a step to the side and give to the pressure on the rope. And there it is. She just takes a little step sideways. Now we can move on to the legs and start off by just letting the rope run around the legs. Just let it touch there. Because some horses, particularly at the beginning, will be a bit touchy about that. She's not. She's very good. But that's not to say you won't hit a point at which the horse that has been very good up until now suddenly does give quite a strong reaction. So now I'm going to ask again for her to yield to the pressure. So high up on the leg. All I want her to do is lift. She's actually taken a little step. That's fine too. The main thing I wanted is that she moves away from pressure around her leg. Now we've moved down to just below the knee, and there you can see she's just a little bit unsettled at that position. She was okay with it higher up, but she's a little bit unsettled there. So I'll just stay with that for a minute and reassure her until she decides that's okay. Now she's relaxing. We move the rope around a little bit more, and it's getting quieter each time. She's still not 100%, but it's getting much better. And there she just lets me hold it in my hand. Now we move down to the fetlock. And again, she's not quite happy with that. So that needs a bit of work. And there we go. Now she's getting the idea of it. And stroke the leg itself. Stroke the part of the horse that's doing the right thing. And just put it down gently. She mustn't snatch it back. She must allow me to place the foot back on the ground. Now we're going to see if she can move that foot. Just as we move the whole horse to the side, we're going to see if we can just move the foot. And you'll see, just as she decides to do it, her weight will move over to the other side. So she'll arrange herself to be in the right position. At that moment, you can just give a little release on the rope. Now we're asking for a step forwards. And that's very good. And all the other legs step in so she's balancing herself. So she really is giving mentally as well as physically. Taking another step to the side. Weight goes to the side. Oh, now she's not too happy. Now she's got the idea. If they're just reacting like that and they're a little bit unsure, you can just hang on in there and say, no, this is fine. If they're getting distressed, go back to the last place where everything was okay and build the whole thing up again more slowly. Right, now we're moving to the back legs. And here I just want her to lift. She's just getting used to the idea of having the rope around her leg. And we'll change sides again and repeat on the other side. If you find that they're unsettled, you can just stroke the legs first. That's fine too. Then we're going to go through the whole procedure again, yielding to the rope around the middle. This is almost like your outside leg when you're riding. So we're already teaching her to move away from the outside leg. So when all of that's working well, we can move on to something that coordinates the blind spot on each side. And we call this exercise switching eyes. You'll see why in just a moment. So the rope goes over the head, along the body of the horse, around the tail, until you've got a bit of rope in each hand, one bit under the neck and one bit on the other side, and just let it touch on both sides. And then step away, take the rope that's going to her head and wait for her to turn round. And as she turns round to look at me, she should come back and look at me with both eyes in that binocular field. That was very good. And then we'll do it in the other direction. It won't necessarily be the same in both directions. Very often it isn't. So once again, we've got her in that sort of cradle. Let her feel the rope on both sides. Very important when you're looking for double lunging or long lining or driving, that you've got something running along the side and they're happy with that. I'm just giving her a second to relax there. There it comes. Let go of the rope at the front, step back. Important to step back so that you're out of the kick zone just in case the horse startles. Sometimes they do. So then you're in the eye that you started on. So the left eye, the right eye, and then you come back into the left eye, or right, left, right. That is why it's switching eyes. You're coordinating the two sides of the brain. So there you have an overview of some of the exercises that might help if you have a horse that's a bit squeamish, a bit ticklish about things around its legs and its sides. However, these exercises aren't just for those horses. Actually, they're very important for every horse. Most of us have had the experience of a horse getting its foot stuck in the fence, or you're leading it along, the reins happen to flip over the head, and the horse gets its foot caught in the reins. These things happen very frequently, and it's quite common for horses in these situations to become very distressed or even to panic, and that can be very dangerous. These exercises will help prepare the horse for those unexpected situations. And so when it happens, they're much more likely then to just stand and wait for you to come and help them and to give to the pressure. Now, many of these exercises might have seemed rather familiar. They're certainly not exclusive, and you'll find similar ones in a number of the different programs that are out there, particularly the horsemanship type training and what in German they call the Gelassenheitstraining, the relaxation exercises. These are used very, very commonly, but it's not so often explained exactly why they're important from the horse's point of view. And I hope that is what you now understand, and that using that information, you'll now be able to create exercises of your own, experiment, and have a bit of fun. Come up with your own ideas. And remember, the important thing is that you want to coordinate things going through those blind spots so that that's not a problem, and that the horse can take that information from each side, from the left and the right side, process that in the brain, bring the whole thing together, and not be startled by it. So I hope you found that helpful. If so, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.